Hey everybody, I'm back. Feeling a little bit better. Um, just a little stuffed up, but got a lot of rest today. So let's get back to Chains, chapter 14. And you really need to make sure that you're annotating chapter 14 because this is really the core of our going to be the core of our work on Monday. So I'll give you a second to get your books out and meet me on page 85, chapter 14, XIV. Okay. All right, here we go. You're annotating. I will be checking annotations on Monday, guys. Saturday, June 22nd, 1776. Life, very uncertain, seeming dangers and scattered thick around us. Plots against the military, and it is whispered against the Senate. Let us prepare for the worst. We can die here but once. May all our business, all our purposes and pursuits tend to fit us for those important events. Letter of Congressional Delegate Abraham Clark to Elias Dayton. Here we go. Chapter 14. The next day, I carried a basket of eels from the fish market to Wall Street, thinking only of hot eel pie for supper. I had not eaten eel pie since Mama died, Miss Mary Finch not being fond of it, but Master Lockton enjoyed the dish, so fat eels weighed down my basket. I fervently hoped Becky would chop off the heads and strip off the skins. It made me go all jumbly in my belly to chop off heads. I entered the kitchen and set the basket on the table. Ruth hummed quietly to herself, shelling peas into a large wooden bowl, and Becky chopped kale. Madame Lockton walked in from the front hall, her hair half fallen out of her cap and stains of sweat under the arms of her dress. She crossed the room, peered out the back door, crossed her arms over her chest, and tapped her foot with impatience, then disappeared into the next room. Wonder what's going on with Madame Lockton. I require you, girl, she said. Becky looked at me, eyes wide and warning. Ma'am? I asked. Madame came back into the kitchen carrying a silver tray. She shoved it into my arms. You will serve your master and his companions. Becky slowly shook her head back and forth. Are you sure, madam? That's what the master requested? She asked slowly. 'Tis hard to interpret the ways of menfolk, them being so complex and all, but surely when he said, let nothing disturb us, that was indeed his true meaning. Be quiet, Becky, Madam snapped. You have the manners of a donkey and the voice of a goose. Becky said nothing more, but chopped faster. Madam paced back and forth. The mayor of New York is a supremely important man, could well be the next royal governor. It is hardly appropriate to welcome him into our home without offering refreshment. So highlight or underline the mayor of New York, and that he's a supremely important man. I wonder why we're talking about the mayor of New York. So your gist would be very important, visiting the Locktons. And also I think it's interesting that Becky says to Mrs. Lockton, I don't think Mr. Lockton wants to be disturbed. And Mrs. Lockton is like, shut up, I'm not talking to you. And then she sort of justifies the fact that she's going to take him refreshment by saying, it is hardly appropriate to welcome him into our home without offering refreshment. So that's a rationalization for what she's about to do. So underline and highlight that. And in your margin, put Mrs. Lockton rationalizes. She turned to me. You will not put one foot wrong. When the tray was loaded so heavily I could scarce lift it, Madame preceded me down the hall and waited by the closed door to the library. Go on, she told me, without offering help. I kicked at the door with my shoe and called out, Wine, sir, and a bite to eat? Leave us, responded Lockton. Madame knocked on the door with not terribly refined fist. Come now, Elihu, show some graciousness. Deep voices in the room conferred. Then the door was unlocked and opened. Madame stepped toward the opening, but Lockton filled the frame. Thank you, dear, he said. The girl can serve us. I'll send her to you if I'm in need of anything more. Madame tried to look beyond him to the distinguished guest, but could not see through the thick form of her husband. Very well, she said loudly. I shall be composing a letter to our cousins in London, our cousins who are so well regarded by His Majesty. Excellent suggestion, dear. He stepped out of the way so that I might enter. So let's look at this. What is Miss Lockton trying to do? Think about that. And what does Mr. Lockton do to keep her from doing what she wants to do? I think there should be a gist and a highlight there, because I think it's really important. All right, let's continue. Middle of page 87. He stepped out of the way so that I might enter. There were only 2 men besides Master Lockton, Gold Buttons wearing a shabby waistcoat of black wool, and the 3rd man, who I took to be the mayor. The mayor had on a fine wig, properly powdered and pulled back, with a curl at the end of his queue, a sable coat and matching breeches, a maroon waistcoat, and a white silk cravat tied loosely around his neck atop his shirt. The windows were all closed, but sun streamed in, heating up the room to a slow simmer and bringing forth the ripe stink of underwashed men. Okay, really interesting. So here we have some characterization going on. Hans Andersen is describing the physical characteristics of the mayor. So you might want to sort of put brackets around this paragraph and put in your margin just description of mayor. And then this last line, Isabel thinks to herself, the heating of the room to a slow simmer and bringing forth the ripe stink of underwashed gentlemen. So what does that mean, guys? Let's highlight underwashed gentlemen. And my gist is, wow, they need some deodorant. So do your gist there. I think these are really, really good descriptions of the men from Isabel's perspective. This is really cool. Let's continue. A broad, brightly colored map of the coastline was spread on the master's desk, weighted at each end by a heavy book. Lockton removed one of the books, and the map curled up on itself, clearing the desk with a plate of Gloucester cheese and rye bread and a bowl of strawberries. My most sincere apologies for the interruption, Lockton said. He took a glass of wine from me. Pray, sir, continue. Gold Buttons took a hasty bite of cheese before speaking. It has proved more difficult to bribe the patriots to change sides than we anticipated. Those who are fed up with the situation prefer to melt out of the city and walk home to Massachusetts or North Carolina. Now, this goes back to a conversation that Isabel overheard. Remember when she was serving Master Lockton gold buttons, ink stained, and I think there was one other guy, I can't remember, and they were talking about, he uncovered all the money in the chest, and they were talking about their plan to bribe patriots to come and support the king. So it appears that that didn't work, and this is what they're now discussing. So go back to page 87, and you need to have some type of gist here. It proved more difficult to bribe the patriots to change sides than anticipated. So I would highlight, underline, or circle that line, and in your gist, bribing patriots was unsuccessful, or the bribe didn't work. So I'll give you a couple of seconds. You can pause the video if you want to get that gisted. Remember, I will be checking gist on Monday, so you want to make sure that you have these very important gists that will support our work on Monday. Top of page 88. I removed the serving tray and retreated to my corner. Remember, there's a place that she's supposed to stand in that corner where the 2 bookcases join whenever she's finished serving. So she remembers and she goes back to her corner. The horses in the painting still leapt the fence. I fought the temptation to reach for the adventures of Mr. Crusoe on the shelf. Instead, I centered my eyes on my feet and my thoughts upon the slice of eel pie. They turned down the offer of hundreds of acres, Lockton said. The land offered by the king is distant from their farms. Gold Buttons buttered a piece of bread. My fellow reports they simply want peace and the chance to get a good crop of wheat. Idiots, said Lockton. The news from Philadelphia is that Congress is close to declaring independence, Gold Buttons continued. I fought the urge to yawn. The master and his friends could complain about the Continental Congress at such length I feared my ears might drop off. Lockton plucked a strawberry from the bowl and pulled the leaves from it. And Admiral Howe continues to delay the invasion. It's maddening. The Crown must smash this rebellion into dust so that we can return to our former lives with a sense of order. And higher profits, Goldbutton added. If Madame only knew how dull these gatherings were, she would not have been so anxious to barge her way in. So let's stop and highlight that, because even Isabel realizes that Madame Lockton wants into the library so she can listen in on the conversation of the gentlemen. So I would underline or highlight she wouldn't have been so anxious to barge her way in, and then just Isabel can't understand why Mrs. Lockton wants to come in because the conversations are really boring. Let's continue. I would have happily chopped off the heads of a barrel full of eels to escape another afternoon trapped with men whose voices droned on and on like rumbling dusty grindstones. The mayor set his goblet on the desk. The time for bribery and persuasion is past. This is the hour when we must unsheath our swords. So highlight, this is the hour when we must unsheath our swords, and write a prediction about what you think that means. So here these men are discussing that all the money and all the promises that they were planning to make to the Patriots in order to switch sides didn't work. And then the mayor says the time for bribery and persuasion is past. So we're deading that. And that in this hour, we must unsheath or take out or unveil our swords. So just a prediction for what you think that means and what you think the mayor has in mind. Lockton shook his head. We've been over this, David. Our task is to hold this city loyal, nothing more. The mayor leaned back in his chair. Holding is not enough. They're coming after us, raiding our homes for lead and our stores for anything they desire. Goldbuttons wiped the cheese from his fingers with a handkerchief. I agree with Elihu. A loyal New York cuts off New England from the other colonies. The rebellion will wither like a vine, cut off from the roots. Cut off the vine, and it will grow back, said the mayor. You must pull out of the ground and burn it to ensure it is dead. So let's stop here. Make a gist, excuse me guys, my nose. Make a gist here, or sort of contrast and compare the two sides. So on the one hand, you have Goldbuttons and Master Lockton, or Elihu Lockton, and then on the other side, you have the mayor. Think about what those two men need, like what do they want, what their sides are or their positions are in this argument about winning the Patriots over, and do it just there in the side column. I'm going to be looking for that gist on Monday. So I'll go back while you're gisting. Goldbuttons wiped the cheese from his fingers with a handkerchief. I agree with Elihu. A loyal New York cuts off New England from the other colonies. The rebellion will wither like a vine cut off at the roots. Cut off the vine and it will grow back, said the mayor. You must pull it out of the ground and burn it to ensure that it is dead. Lockton put the strawberry leaves in the bowl. Is there a plan afoot to destroy them? Most definitely. The mayor's voice was quiet but steely. This was not idle pratter about Congress. I stood still as possible. The mayor scratched at the mustard stain on his cuff. General Howe delayed the invasion, hoping the revolutionary fervor would die down. On the contrary, independent sentiment now burns as far away as Georgia, as well as the western frontier. Underline independent sentiment. What do you think he's talking about? What does he mean when he says independent sentiment? Do a gist. And he says that this independent sentiment burns as far away as Georgia. So from New York to Georgia, way down south, and out to the western frontier as well. I am a bookcase, I thought. I am a piece of furniture, not a girl who will remember every word spoken in this room. The cry for liberty has proved powerful, Lockton said. The beast has grown too large, the mayor said. If it breaks free of its chains, we are all in danger. We need to cut off its head. Gold Buttons frowned. How so? Guys, who's the beast? Underline and highlight the beast has grown too large, and do it just for who is the beast? What are they talking about when they say the beast has grown too large? Let's move on. Over to page 90. We must kill their commander. Lockton drew in his breath sharply. With Washington gone, the revolution will collapse, predicted the mayor. War will be averted and countless lives saved. Our world will return to the former state of tranquility we enjoyed before all of this nonsense. The study fell silent. I feared the men would hear my heart beating. Kill General Washington? No, Lockton said, shaking his head. Not possible. He is a gentleman. Capture him, arrest him, yes, but we dare not harm him. The mayor ticked off the reasons on his fingers. All of the American leaders have committed treason against the king. You cannot deny that. Treason is the highest offense under English law, worse than murder. And what is the punishment for treason, my friends? Neither Lockton nor Gold Buttons answered. To be hung by the neck until dead. Then have your body chopped into 4 pieces, which are sent to the 4 corners of the kingdom, the mayor continued. Others propose we send sections of Washington's corpse to Charleston, Philadelphia, and Boston. They want to keep the 4th bit here, to be displayed in front of City Hall. The room fell silent again. I could hear the ticking of the hall clock through the wall. Lockton shook his head again. You cannot guarantee Parliament would rule treason. It's too dangerous. So Parliament is the governing body in London. And if you commit treason against the king, you are subject to be killed or to die. And this is what the mayor is saying. So the mayor is rationalizing his plan to kill Washington by saying all of the patriots have committed treason against the king. And so it is our right to kill the general and shut down the revolution. Does Lockton agree? Do it just here on the bottom of page 9 and tell me whether or not you think Lockton agrees with the mayor. Lockton shook his head again. You cannot guarantee Parliament will rule treason. It's too dangerous. If we dispose of Washington, Parliament will do whatever we ask. But how can you accomplish this? Asked Gold Buttons. The man is surrounded by an entire army. We have a man in the lifeguards committed to our plan. He spends his days within 2 arms' length of the general. On our signal, he will act. And this is why you need the money, Lockton said. There was the sound of the lid being removed and the jangling of keys. Lockton took a key ring out of the blue china snuff jar and on the corner of the desk. He unlocked the top drawer and removed a tall stack of currency. Guys, currency is money, enough to buy a village or 2. I let my eyelids droop as if I were a dozing. The risks are too high, Gold Button said in a shaky voice. If we are discovered, we are dead men. Okay, so here I would just hear, what is Gold Button's feeling about this plan? So highlight, underline, the risks are too high. Gold Button said in a shaky voice, if we are discovered, we are dead men. So do it just there about Gold Buttons and how he feels about this plan. Lockton tugged at his collar to loosen it. Suspicion will fall on my neck first, David. I require assurance that my role will not be betrayed. So what is Lockton doing here? What does he want from the mayor in order to go along with this plan? Put it just there and explain that to me. Okay, where are we? Here we are. You have my word on it, the mayor said. Your promise is not enough, sir. Lockton pushed a sheet of paper, a quill, which is a pen, and the inkstand across the desk to the mayor. Write down the names of those who know of this plot. Why? Gold Buttons asked. The paper will serve as my insurance should I fall into the rebel hands again. It will motivate you and our friends to do everything possible to secure my release. All right, hold the phone. Do a gist here. What is Lockton up to? Why does he want the mayor to write down everyone who's involved in this plot? And how do you think having that piece of paper will help him if he's captured or arrested by the rebels or the patriots again? Stop the video here, do a gist, and then let's come back in 10 seconds. Okay, let's read that again. The paper will serve as my insurance should I fall into the rebel hands again. It will motivate you and our friends to do everything possible to secure my release. How? Gold Buttons was still frowning, but the mayor reached for the quill. Remember, a quill is a pen. If we do not come to Elihu's aid, he will betray our names to the enemy, the mayor said softly. He is showing us his weakness. Wow, so the mayor doesn't like this. In the mayor's mind, this is not cool. Planning ahead is my strength, Lockton said. Do you forget your own name, sir? Ooh, it's getting juicy. I closed my eyes again. The quill scratched across the paper. Gold Buttons shifted nervously in his chair. There, the mayor said. I opened my eyes the tiniest bit. Gold Buttons quickly read the paper. A vast conspiracy indeed. He handed it to Lockton, who read the names and smiled. We are keeping good company. He handed the money to the mayor and lifted his empty glass. I believe this calls for a toast, gentlemen. I did not step forward with the wine bottle. Lockton needed to believe I was a sleepy servant, unaware of his plans. Sal! He snapped. I drew back my head and acted befuddled or confused. Wine, Lockton said. I crossed the room and emptied the last of the wine into his glass. Lockton frowned. Fetch another bottle, he said. Yes, sir. I curtsied and left the room, pondering how I could pass this news along to Curzon. That was when the blood-curdling screams started in the kitchen. I dropped the bottle and ran. Wow, this is getting good. So, guys, you have enough room right here to do your CSCRT. Make sure that you do that. And I want to see a CSCRT for Chapter 13 as well. So those will be 2 grades that you'll receive on Monday. CSCRT for 13, CSCRT for 14, and Chapter 15 coming up. Thanks, guys. Bye.